Chapter 26. The Valley of Hinnom. The prophet looked out into the valley where the Lord had sent him. It was the site of the nation's darkest of sins. He had been told to go there to deliver a prophecy of judgment. Because they have forsaken me and made this an alien place, because they have burned incense in it to other gods, whom neither they, their fathers, nor the kings of Judah have known, and have filled this place with the blood of the innocents, ashes, bones, and blood. It was the valley of Hinnom, the ground that bore witness to the depths to which the nation had descended in its fall from God. It was filled with blood, ashes, and little bones. The evidence of murder. The people had come to that valley to worship their new gods and burn their sons and their daughters in the fire. The prophet was Jeremiah, known as the weeping prophet. For the tears he shed over his nation's fall, it was beyond his fathoming. How a nation so blessed, so favored with promise, and so filled with the revelation of God could descend to the horrors in the valley of Hinnom, but the gods had accomplished it. Their aim from the beginning was revealed in the end, in the valley of Hinnom. The goal was destruction of the nation's children and of the nation itself. The gods had caused mothers to forget their motherhood and lift up their babies to the molten god that would destroy them. The gods had deafened the nation to the screaming of their little children on the altars in the valley. Millions on the altars. America had its own valley of Hinnom. It was every place in which the nation's unwanted children were put to death. Israel had killed thousands of its sons and daughters. America had killed millions. From the time that their murder was legalized in the early 1970s, America had spilled the blood of approximately 1 million children every year. By the second decade of the 21st century, it had killed over 60 million of them. It was a valley of Hinnom of unfathomable proportions, of endless blood, ashes, and little bones. How could it have happened? How could a nation that once prided itself in being Christian under God and a moral beacon of the world have fallen into such depths of evil? Their blood crying out. It happened just as it had to ancient Israel in a progression of seduction. The spirit of Baal had caused America to believe that departing from God would bring it freedom. The spirit of Ishtar had convinced it that if it abandoned its moral safeguards for instant gratification and sexual abandon, it would find fulfillment. And the spirit of Molech had promised to grant it the blessings of an unhindered life if it would only allow him to take away children. Baal, Ishtar, and Molech, the dark trinity of Israel's fall, had again seduced a nation and an entire civilization. The promise of their seduction would remain unmet. It would lead instead to a state of brokenness, emptiness, and now death. The paganization of America and Western civilization was now reaping its most bloody fruits. The once Christian civilization was now taking part in the most pagan of acts, the killing of its own children, their blood crying out to heaven. The Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, America. When Germany turned away from God and the Christian faith, the powers of hell were unleashed. The result was the murder of 6 million Jews and a world war that would see the perishing of tens of millions. When Russia morphed into the Soviet Union and turned away from God and the Christian faith, the result was again the murder of tens of millions of people. When America began turning away from God and the Christian faith, the result was the murder of over 60 million children. The removing of God, and in particular the Christian faith, is a most dangerous thing. The murder of 60 million American children far exceeded anything Molech had accomplished in ancient times. But the parable said that when the spirits return to the house, they come back over 7 times worse than at the start. And Molech's death toll in the modern world would be greater still. America's welcoming in of Molech would ultimately lead other nations to do the same. Taking into account these other sacrifices of Molech, the killing of unborn children all over the world, the number of those murdered on his altars, the fruit of a world turned away from God would far exceed 1 billion. A warning from Hinnom. The prophet Jeremiah warned Israel as to what would happen to a nation that had once known God and now lifts up its children as offerings to the gods. The end is destruction. There are few things that so invoke the judgment of God as the killing of little children. The words of the prophet would now warn a civilization that had also once known God, and was now offering up its children. The blood of millions now covered America's collective hands. It had departed from God, and was now standing in the valley of Hinnom, with ashes, bones, and blood, the blood crying out to heaven, and likewise in danger of judgment. We are now about to open up the realm of the mystery that will touch upon the highest altars of American and Western civilization. It will now involve the most hallowed of modern sacred cows and idols. Thus it will become even more intense and more explosive. We will now illuminate the most controversial of modern-day issues with the light of an ancient mystery. The illumination will involve avatars, modern-day priesthoods, and the playing out of an ancient mythology in our midst and in real time. We begin with the opening up of the mystery of the Transformer.